fire in those eyes.
When I got my Switch 2, I wanted something fun to play on it. I like JRPGs and have heard great things about Bravely Default, so I decided to pick it up for just $39.99 US.
If you'll permit me.
I went into it expecting a game with pretty fun gameplay, really cool job customization, and a chibi art style that I found slightly off-putting.
There's something I'd very much like to show you.
But what I got out of it was not only one of the best RPG games that I've ever played, but an engrossing story, some of my favorite characters out there, captivating yet awkwardly cut music, and honestly, one of the best games that I've ever played.
Say that you'll stay till the very end.
I want to start off by talking about the element of an RPG that for me is one of the most important elements. The story, the characters, the world. Because when I went into Bravely Default, I wasn't expecting them to blow me away like they ended up doing. The characters across the board, not just your main party members, they're just big and colorful. They make their presence known, they're like a bit goofy sometimes, but when the game needs to get emotional and needs to get down to earth, it is absolutely able to do so, and produces some absolutely heart-wrenching but also heart-warming moments. This game has a plethora of secrets that you can find by talking to certain NPCs in the correct order. You don't have to, don't get me wrong, it's just if you use your brain and go, oh, I wonder if I do this, then this, then this, will it change this? Chances are it probably will, and the game gives you a little bit of extra story or a new little scene just to reward you for thinking outside of the box. There's so much more to not only this game's story, but its characters and its world than I thought going into it. The amount of extra things you can just decide to immerse yourself in. Reading the journal that one of the main party members has around with them. The amount of foreshadowing there is actually crazy. This game has one of the most wild and insane plot twists I've ever seen in a game, and I dare not spoil what it is, but I will say the way they utilize the main menu, brilliant. Actually brilliant. From top to bottom, this game just gets better and better as it goes on. The gameplay becomes way more varied and interesting, with the job customization just continuing to branch out as you go further into this game, on top of the characters becoming more multi-dimensional and interesting and funny, as well as the party dynamics becoming even better as the game goes on, and the story as well just gets crazier and crazier, but in a good way. God, I love pretty much every element of this game. The premise is extremely simple. It is a Square Enix RPG. Bet ya ass there are 4 crystals. One of the main party members is known as Agnes. She is a Vestal of Wind. Essentially, think of her like a priestess of a crystal. And it is her job to go around the world awakening the crystals in order to stop them from being corrupted by darkness and shadow. There are 3 other main party members. You have Tiz, whose hometown was swallowed up by this giant chasm. You have Ringabel, who's a guy that just doesn't remember anything, but he has this journal, which weirdly enough seems to predict the future. And then you have my goat Idea, a former member of the Empire, who after seeing what they're doing decides to go, well, traitor, and join the ranks of Tiz, Agnes, and Ringabel. Those 4 go across the world in a quest to awaken the crystals. And I know that sounds like the most stereotypical Square Enix RPG plot of all time, but my god, do they understand that? And do they play with that foundational idea? I dare not spoil the absolute twists and turns this game has. It is a journey, an absolute delight. And whenever I thought I understood what this game was truly about, it surprised me, in all the right ways as well. And I know a lot of people talk about Bravely Default largely for its gameplay, because as we'll get to, it is also phenomenal and one of the best turn-based experiences I've ever seen, especially at a Square Enix. But for me, the thing that I gravitated to the most wasn't just the phenomenal gameplay, it was the story, it was the characters. I love these 4 guys. They are so likable, they're so great, and the game is willing to allow you to get more out of it, so long as you're willing to put more into it. And I can appreciate that out of not only a story, but a world and a game. It's a really cool idea that when you use a character's special ability, it changes the music and almost adds on to it. And if you use another character's special ability, it adds on to that as well. I love it when games utilize the music in interesting ways, as Bravely Default does. Granted, it has some awkward cuts here and there and can be a little bit stiff, but I can forgive it just because of how well designed this game is from top to bottom. It's a great example that not everything needs to be like the most cutting-edge graphics with the biggest budgets of all time. A cohesive and great creative direction and vision, alongside really competent design, can go a long way, not just for the gameplay, but for the visuals, for the world, for the navigation, for the gameplay, for the characters, for the music, for everything. But speaking of the gameplay, let's finally get into it, because my god, it's so dang fun. The gameplay of Bravely Default comes off as very simple, but the amount of depth and complexity and customization there is so dang satisfying and rewarding. It is a turn-based combat system, but what makes it unique are two main mechanics, and if you play a bunch of other Square Enix turn-based games nowadays, you may be familiar with some of their ideas. You have Brave, which utilizes a resource known as BP to give you an extra action on your turn. If you go into the negatives, you'll have to wait that amount of turns to recoup the BP to get back to 0 so that you can go again. But what Brave allows you to do is be able to go 2, 3, even 4 times within one turn. And there's another mechanic called Default, which is essentially the opposite. It's basically your God mechanic, where you forego doing an action that turn, but instead, you gain an additional BP, and can go all the way up to like 4 BP. So one of the strategies I generally did was, unless I had to do something differently, I would just default a few times, and then on the next turn, I could use 4 actions on each of those characters, and I wouldn't miss a turn on them, because none of them would go into the red. What this allowed me to do was to be pretty defensive for a few turns, and then go into these giant spurts of damage. However, not every fight can be countered with just that principle. Sometimes you have to be more aggressive because they may have ways to counteract you defaulting, or they may be preparing for something that is far too dangerous for you to leave unattended. And Bravely Default is this harmonious dance of balancing your BP and understanding what BP the enemies are at as well, because the enemies also operate under this system. So if you know the enemy is using a bunch of BP this turn, they may be unable to act for a turn or two, and you can then capitalize on that. So maybe you go, well, I could spend all my resources on this turn, but I know they're about to default, which means they would take less damage. Maybe I don't want to do that. Or I know, hey, they're about to unleash everything they have on me right now. I should defend myself so I can tough it out, heal up afterwards, and in that little bit of a window I get afterwards, because they may be in negative BP, I can then attack them and do whatever I want unimpeded. So you get this great mix of understanding what mechanics the enemies are doing to you and how you can counteract whatever the enemies are doing. It is a great yet simple combat system, but what gives it so much depth and charm is the job system. Much like the rest of the game, the job system gives off this appearance, this masquerade of simplicity, and in a lot of ways it is, but the true beauty lies in how deep and just how much you can get out of this system. The job system is essentially your list of classes that you can spec each of the characters into. Each character has an overall level, but also a level for the job they are currently playing. You gain regular XP to increase your character level, and JP to increase the level of the job currently equipped to that character. As you increase a job's level, you not only unlock new abilities to use for that job, you unlock new passive abilities that may augment your stats or your affinity with certain weapons or armor types. Each job also has a predetermined list of affinities that it has for certain weapon archetypes and armor types. For instance, the Swordmaster will give you an S rank for katanas, but if you want an S rank for daggers, you're better off looking towards more like Ninja or Thief. Sounds simple enough, right? But with one little thing, the job system goes from something extremely typical to deep, complex, and gives you access to so much customization. Off-speccing. What you can do for each of the characters is select which other job you want to be able to use their active abilities. For instance, For Anya's, I can have her be a summoner, but if I still want my healing abilities, I can have her off-spec into White Mage, so I still have access to the active abilities of White Mage while I'm playing and leveling up Summoner, so I can mix and match those abilities that may or may not synergize with each other. And when it concerns my passive abilities, when I unlock them for any of the jobs, I retain access to those passive abilities no matter the job combination I have equipped right now. Some passive abilities will only take up 1 slot, some 2, some 3. However, by nature of being able to mix and match the various passive abilities with each other, on top of being able to mix and match what active abilities you have depending upon the job you have equipped and your off-spec, you can create so many different combinations. One of my favorite ones later on in the game was having my main spec be Dark Knight and my off-spec be Monk. This gives me access to Monk abilities and Dark Knight abilities. There's one Monk ability that will drop you down to 1 HP and do the amount of health you just lost as damage to an enemy. Sounds risky, right? But what I can also do is equip the passive abilities from Monk that gives me even more HP to make that ability do even more damage. But remember, I also have Dark Knight equipped, and Dark Knight comes equipped with an ability called Minus Strike, where it will deal the amount of damage to an enemy that is equal to the HP I currently have lost. So if I get it to where my maximum HP is over the damage cap of 9999, what I can then essentially do is just do 4 attacks at damage cap. It's a little bit risky, but if I know the turn orders and I know the speeds of all my characters and when characters should realistically go, I can plan accordingly and have a heal ready to go on another character to keep my character doing that dangerous combo out of the danger zone. That's not the only combo available to you. There's so many others. The game rewards you. Like I said with the story, like I said with the characters in the world, the game rewards you for thinking about it, for thinking outside of the box, for trying and experimenting. The more you level, the more you put into the game, the more you will be able to get out of it. So by the time the game is throwing absolutely crazy stuff at you later on into the experience, you have so many options at your disposal. You can mix and match according to the fight if you want to, or you can do what I did and find a really good combination. Another one of my favorites involved pairing Pirate with Freelancer. Freelancer being the starter job. You would think it'd be a crapper, right? But the final ability you can unlock by getting Freelancer to max level is called Mimic. And what it does is it repeats the previous action you've done at no resource cost. And on Pirate, they have an ability that costs a ton of MP, but it does 4 times the damage of a regular attack. But the trade-off is that it costs so much MP. But with Mimic, I can use that very inefficient ability to do a bunch of damage once, absorb that MP cost, then use Mimic 3 different times to repeat that same ability with no MP cost. Pair that alongside the Dark Knight Monk combination I just talked about, and all of a sudden, I'm putting out a ton of damage. And maybe my best weapon that I have available is the katana, but Pirate uses axes, but I've already used Swordmaster on that character, so I can equip the ability to give me an S rank and aptitude for katanas onto my character that's playing Pirate Freelancer, just to optimize my damage even more. I can then also equip the two-handed weapon ability from Knight to go an even step further. There's so many cool little customizations and so many cool little choices that you can make just to squeeze out that much more out of these characters. The game is shockingly deep and in such a good way because it's not overly complicated or anything like that. These various systems are easily digestible and understandable, and it made me happy that I got so many hours out of this game. My playthrough clocked in over 100 hours for a game I spent $39.99 on. And in that time, it wasn't just filler, it was great. The game constantly threw new interesting combinations of enemies at me, and the way that it can reuse a lot of the same boss fights but in different and interesting ways by pairing them up with each other and in different combinations is so dang cool, and it mirrors just how many combinations there are with the job system, because the way you unlock the jobs are by defeating these big named boss fights to acquire their job stone, and then you can use all of their jobs. So if you want the red mage, you have to go find the red mage guy and defeat him. And you get a nice little story for doing that as well. It's great. Some say the game gets a bit repetitive in its final half. I can understand where they are coming from, and I won't get into the story spoilers here. However, I think it's some of the best parts of this game, because it shows the real strength and flexibility of the gameplay systems and how strong the story is. They're always throwing new things at you, and the moment I start to feel, okay, maybe this is getting a little bit repetitive, I get into a new fight, and I'm like, oh, this is so dang different and cool and feels so different. Oh, this is challenging me. I have to think differently here. How can I counteract this? How can I learn? How can I get better at this? Oh, I want to level up this job on this character and this job on this other character to either acquire these abilities or these active abilities. This is a gameplay loop that largely never stops. I think the pacing in this game is one of its greatest strengths, and I will always push back on the critique that this game gets repetitive in its latter half. I think it's arguably when the game shows you its true genius. I wholeheartedly recommend Bravely Default. Whether you play on the Switch 2 or you play the original version on the 3DS, I truly believe this is one of the best games, not only that Square Enix made, but of all time. And the minigames that are added with the Switch 2 are pretty interesting. They utilize the mouse controls of the new Joy-Cons for a rhythm game, and this like airship piloting management simulation thing. They get a bit hectic and wild when you get to high difficulties, and it really does kind of show the limitations of the Joy-Cons as mice, because it really does depend upon your setup whether or not it's a comfortable experience. But they're a neat idea, and I like the arcadey feel that those minigames give you. And you can unlock some interesting rewards by doing those minigames. Like, not just gear, but also outfits and other things. You don't have to play them. They are a complete side activity, but it's nice to be able to break up the flow and still feel as if I'm working towards something by doing them. I think they're rather neat. I think it's one of those games where if you watch a playthrough, you may view it to be repetitive, because of story decisions that are made in the latter half of the game. Again, I do not want to get into spoilers because, trust me, I genuinely believe you should experience this game for yourself. But what I will say is that I think Bravely Default does a phenomenal job of telling its story as a video game. It feels like a 3DS game, do not get me wrong here. And there can be a few moments that feel as if they drag on just a little bit too much, but if you're willing to allow the game to cook, to just give it time and show you what it's trying to do, it is such a fun, captivating, enthralling, engaging experience from start to finish. Personally, I want to see Bravely Second also ported to modern systems. And I hope at one point in time in the future we'll get multi-platform ports of Bravely Default Flying Fairy. I don't know how you would do the mini-games because they're kind of dependent upon the Joy-Con mouse controls, both of them. But even if you forego them, I hope more people play this game. It is phenomenal. It's incredible. I loved it. What an absolutely stellar experience this game turned out to be. So here's where you come in. Leave a comment down below with whether or not you have played Bravely Default. Are you interested in trying it out? How did you like the game yourself? And also, would you like to see other ports of Bravely Default to other systems? I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. But we have a lot more RPGs to play in the future, and if you want to be along for this wild ride, you should leave a like and subscribe. Follow me on TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter, Jmulls G. I have a Discord in the description down below. And guys, I played the Trails in the Sky first chapter demo. It's incredible. And if you want to hear my thoughts on it, you should check out this video right here for more. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye everybody, until we meet again.